Hello, everybody. Welcome to Director on Director, The Electrical Life of Louis Wain, in conversation with director Will Sharpe and Taika Waititi. Now, this is a film from a story by Simon Stephenson and a screenplay by Simon Stephenson and Will Sharpe. And it is awesome to welcome you both here. Will and Taika, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much
for having us.
Director on Director.
I know. Yeah, kind of top and bottom.
Like an LA party.
Well, I'm going to be kind of your maitre d', so I'm just going to be here in the background, kind of being nosy and asking the things that I want to ask. But I really want to encourage you guys just to, have a conversation with each other about your fantastic talents. But I'm going to start off, if that's all right, because I'm really interested to know from you both at what point and why you wanted to start directing. Will, I'm going to start with you.
I don't know. I guess it seemed to come naturally when you starting to write stuff to perform with other people, initially on stage for me, and you sort of see how it looks in your head and how it plays, and so I guess around the same time that I started writing stuff to perform, whether it was sketches or little plays or whatever it might have been. And then I think initially it didn't really cross my mind that you could actually make a living out of filming things, making TV or film. That seemed so alien to me. But initially, my friend Tom Kingsley and I, we set out to make a short film, and that went okay. And then off the back of that, we found ourselves making a micro budget feature film for like 20 grand. And I think we worked out that it costs like the same as 1 second of Transformers or something. And then that went okay. And then I was sort of allowed to consider, applying to direct things from there, I guess.
Taika, what about for you?
I started very much the same. I started off, I didn't get into directing until I was 30. So I was doing before that. Before everything, I was a painter, so I started painting pictures. And that was my thing, doing pictures and photography. And then I was doing a lot of theatre with my friends and a lot of comedy and stuff. And no one would hire us to do anything, so we ended up just writing all the stuff ourselves and then making all the props ourselves and putting on our own shows because none of the big theatres would hire us, and we couldn't get into any of the established plays or anything, so we'd make up all our own stuff. And then we just started directing each other, and we just kind of just code. It was never really a director. We would just be there and just say, that looks good, just do that. And that's how Jermaine and I started, just directing each other and writing everything. And then I thought, oh, well, film's not something that I hadn't tried yet. And it was, I wrote a little short script that I thought was just going to be a one-act play. And then a friend of mine said, you should have a go at doing film, which is something I'd always wanted to do, because I felt more and more, because I'd been on a few TV shows and a couple of films as an actor, and I really loved the idea of not having to dress up and come to work, and like not having to put a costume on or put makeup on. I loved the idea of being in control. And and then I made my first short films, and the more that I experienced that, the more I just got addicted to the idea of being this demigod and being able to have control, and especially over my own scripts. And so, because as we were saying, it's once you learn that you can ask people to say the words how you imagine them in your head, it's really hard to break away from that again. And so I got a real control issue with how things are said, because I've heard them for years sometimes as I'm writing.
But it's interesting because you both, you both have done the directors, but you both actors as well. And how much does that, having that experience and continuing to do that, inform or help as a director, do you think? Or does it?
I don't know what you find. I sometimes use the analogy of in London, it's quite dangerous to ride a bicycle. But if you've recently been on a bicycle and then you're driving a car, you can kind of remember how it felt to be on the bicycle. So there's a kind of awareness. I sort of find if it's been 4 hours or more of, you know, lighting and prep, and then the actors, I sort of, I guess, feel like I have a empathy for how they might be feeling. It's a big scene, they got to deliver in a short space of time, they've been waiting for ages. So on that level, I think it's helpful. How do you find that?
I find I go up and down with it. Like I really because every actor's different, and the more actors I work with as a director, I feel like, because also again going back to like how like my friends and I worked when we were young, none of us would talk about like Stanislavski. None of us would talk about like the process. None of us would discuss anything to do with what we considered quite a wanky approach to work. And so like we would just be like, we would make fun, like we'd take pleasure out of making fun of that world. And the more I did act, the more stuff that we did, like I've come to, I don't know, I really love demystifying the world of acting, because I think it is easier than people think. And I mean, it's literally remembering lines, remembering words, and trying to say them as fast as possible is really what I want. And when people, you know, they bring bullshit, kind of like, you know, these big sort of like, you know, this kind of acting, you're always itching, you know, kind of. But my dad worked on the docks, you know, it's like all this sort of like drama school acting that you see all the time now. Like I just really turns me off, and so so when I interact with actors, I try and empathize, and sometimes they're like, "It's so hard." I'm like, diamond mining is hard. Diamond mining, I think that's hard. But like this should be fun for you, and you know, don't torture yourself. But again, like, you know, then I'm coming from a place where the acting I do, the caliber of acting that I do is probably about a here, you know, in terms of like I don't challenge myself in terms of like a lot of the roles I give myself. I take all the fun stuff and the things that I think are going to be fun and make my job fun. So, you know, so a lot of time I'm like, what are you stressing about? Just do it. And, you know, I think a lot of them, they're carrying a movie, and which is different to what I do. So,
do you miss, like, you know, because obviously you're hugely successful and you're working on some pretty massive projects these days. And you still, like, it feels like you still mix it up. But do you miss like those early days of like just you and your mates with, you know, like a shit camera?
Yeah,
you know, in a field.
Yeah, totally. I had full control. We were a lot more experimental with like finding solutions to things, and creatively, you know, I think so much exciting stuff came out of those times. Whereas now it's like, you know, I'll be like, we could do this, and they're like, no, there's a giant $2 million piece of equipment that you can use to do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's not as fun doing that way. I want to find a really fun solution. So I lost a lot of that. But I think for me, what's important is just keeping those people around and working with like-minded people a lot. So I only want to work with friends and people who I think are artistic or have a very loose creative nature, that aren't regimented or don't have a, you know, don't approach it like I, you know, in this, the way that I didn't approach it, because I still don't know half the equipment names on sets. Like I'm like, get the train track things out. Like, and I know what I want and what I want things to look like, but I don't know the terminology. I never went to film school and didn't do that. I just learned from watching people, and I felt like that.
Yeah, I was the same. I weirdly did like a year and a bit on a soap. It's called Casualty, as an actor.
Did you?
I did, yeah. And that was like one of my first jobs, and I felt like I learnt the absolute basics of filming stuff. You know, like everybody's different jobs, the sort of most kind of fundamental, ordinary way to cover a scene. And every now and again, you get a director in who tries stuff. And that was exciting. And so I felt like I had a sense of what I found frustrating and how I didn't want to, shoot things or write things. But I learnt weirdly quite a lot from that job about just, the nuts and bolts of it.
I'm very much the same. I was on a TV show years ago called The Strip, and I played a stripper.
Uh-huh.
And,
oh yeah.
and I don't like to talk about it other than that show inspired me to like stop acting in New Zealand and to go and do something else. And like otherwise, I was doomed to be a stripper on TV shows.
Right.
And so I decided to go and write my own stuff and make stuff. But on that show, I mean, it wasn't that the show was bad. It was just it was painful for me to have to get waxed and go to the gym and eat cans of tuna all day. And
right.
I was very much the same. Like I decided to spend all my time just watching directors and watching how the set worked and learning. And that was like my first experience of what I'd call like the film school work through observing. And then again, exactly. Now and then directors would come in and do these big one-take shots, and everyone would be excited because they were like, "Oh my god, it's possible to do something cool." And that's what addicted me to it, actually.
We've both had quite a lot of experience in terms of working in TV as well as film. Whether it's Flowers or Landscapers more recently, or What We Do in the Shadows more recently, Reservation Dogs, or Back to Flight the Conchords. And that kind of grounding and training in the world of TV, both in terms of what you're saying as actors, but also on the production side of it as well, of being a sponge and taking everything in. Do you think that's been a good training ground for you both?
For me, it has, yeah. I think like when I think back, only to a couple of years ago, I still believed I'd only been making films for about 7 years, and it's now been almost 20. And I didn't realize how fast that time had gone. And every time I did like a little tiny bit here and there, a piece of theatre or on a piece of TV or something, or just one episode of something, or even this show that like never got picked up, or a pilot never got picked up, it's all training. And I think what's really hard for directors is that, especially with film, it can be 3 years or 4 years before you're on set again. And then, so like for me, exercising those muscles again and again, working with actors, no matter how good they are, just being on a set and working with crews and equipment has really paid off, because I do know what I'm doing now, and I feel like very comfortable on a set. And so I feel like my advice to people would be like, in the moment, it seems like the worst possible compromise to be doing, an episode of like a kid's show. But you will get something from it.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say the same. I don't think there's any job where you don't take something away from it. But at the same time, I guess it's the same thing where I eventually started to get hungry and just wanted to make. It's kind of like, I wish it had been a bit more like this, or I wonder why this. It could have been a bit. Wouldn't it have been exciting if this? And you start, well, what if you tried it and it feels insane? But then once you've tried it and it goes, nobody dies, and it's kind of okay. And people are like, yeah, that was okay. You're not an idiot for doing that. Then it's okay. Well, maybe I'll try and do it again then. And yeah, I guess I remember for me, something that I found really helpful. I can't remember if it was like an interview in print or like a talk or something, but Armando Iannucci was another person that I, really admired. It said that basically everybody is winging it. Like nobody really knows what they're doing. Everybody is just like terrified of being found out and doing the best they can. And I was like, well, if he feels like that, then maybe it's okay to like give it a shot,
So true. Yeah. I love his stuff as well. And it's funny when you watch, like, nobody sees the first assembly of your cut. No one knows like how many things you cut, what little shortcuts you took, how you managed to stitch together these two bits which never were designed to stick together. And everyone goes, "Wow, they're so accomplished. They must have had the entire thing planned." And I'm like, "No, I was by the skin of my teeth got through this one."
Yeah.
And, I talk to more and more directors who feel the same, and directors never share with each other. It's really like very rare. I think it's like a fear of like, I don't know, like giving away secrets or this idea of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't want too many people to know I don't know entirely what I'm doing. And, but I think it's so great when I hear that, and I tell people that all the time. I'm like, it's also it's a balance thing, because like on set you can't let anyone know that.
Yeah.
So and I've heard stories about people who have said that out loud on set, and some people have taken aside and said, "It's okay for you to tell me you don't know what you're doing, but please do." The crew hear that, because they're like these sharks to blood in the water. They will stop listening to you. They won't follow you, and it's like high school. Film sets are like high school, basically. Just trying to be liked.
I've had it quite a lot where sometimes people will come up to me and say, "How are you so calm? You're always so calm." And my heart's like going like this. And I'm like, dude, I'm not calm. What are you talking about?
I'm not famous for napping a lot during the day, so I nap on my sets a lot. Like I'm not like a Nolan who never sits down. You'll find me curled up in a corner on the floor asleep, and like sometimes people will come past like, "Oh, all right for some." I'm like, well, it is actually all right for me to do this, because I guarantee none of you on the crew are taking this home with you and thinking about this till 4 or 5 a.m. freaking out. And I'm like, the chance I get to have like 20 minutes sleep over lunch, like I'm taking it. I'm taking it. I need to survive, because it is so stressful. It's probably, if you look at just in terms of stress, it's probably one of the most stressful jobs you can have.
Do you have edit dreams?
Yeah, I mean, I basically I only dream about bad situations on sets and edits.
Right, okay.
Suddenly, I'm the main actor, and I'm like, what? How did this happen? And learn all these lines and perform this thing, and like, everything I've dreamed about.
I had one nightmare deep in an edit where I was trying to find the edit point. I was like walking around this apartment, and I was trying to find where the cut point, and it just wouldn't cut. And I was like, it's got to be here somewhere. And it was I was very anxious.
I love that, edit dreams. Well, what was Taika like to direct?
Fun, really fun, and very game. And it was quite late on in the shoot, and I think it gave everyone like a real injection of energy, like so spontaneous and generous and giving. And there's some brilliant stuff that didn't make it into the film, I'm sorry to say, but I had a lot of fun.
The restaurant scene, there was like a bit where, again, I don't know if I should ever listen to myself, but I'm like, here's a good idea. I think that's what most actors do. They go, here's a great idea. I should eat this entire seafood tower. And for some reason, even after all these years, I forget you have to do things multiple times. It's like you do it first, like, ha ha ha, this is hilarious. I'm eating all of these scallops, all these things. And then after like the sort of 7th time, like,
you had to eat a lot of seafood.
I felt pretty insane after that, but it was fun, and I really started loving just acting for people, for friends, or doing things where I don't have to take it home and just and play. It's so delightful to be able to do that, and to not have to think about the movie and to think about delivering a movie. You can just come in and like pour all of your concentration into the lines and to pleasing someone else.
Pressure's off.
Pressure's off, but also I do understand. It reminded me, like doing this just reminded me of how fun acting is. Like I do it because I'm like, I basically, me being a director and making my own films was just a super long way of me becoming an actor. It's just like, it's like, no, I was like, I'm not going to audition. I hate that. I'm going to make films and then put myself in my own films. That's how I'll get around auditioning. And it took 10 years. But
it's not.
I do love it. I love that. I just love being able to like concentrate on that one thing. It's so cool.
I feel like that model though is becoming more and more. That's certainly how I feel we started as well. Was, you could apply for this fund and you can write a 45-page document explaining why you deserve the funding, and you can send them your script and the backup version of the script and the pitch document and the 750-page mood board or whatever, and then not get it. Or you can just find a way to just start. And I think more and more, and for me as well, from a casting point of view, I was finding myself often sitting in a chair in a small office in the BBC or wherever, being asked if I could do martial arts, or, you know, auditioning for normally the guy who's sitting at a computer warning somebody else about the danger of like a spaceship that's coming close, like 4 lines. And it's like, be really careful, there's danger coming. And it's like, I'd rather not do that forever.
Yeah.
So then, you know, and I think more and more people are like, well, the thing that I can do is I can write something myself, and I can, you know, try and make it. And, you know, if I don't have money to do it, I can do it for no money. And just kind of, I feel like that's the positive thing to encourage, I think. Anyway,
not to turn this into a Q&A as a festival, but how did you? Because I've never asked you this. How you got, like, how you teamed up with Benedict and everyone, and like how that all kind of fell into place.
That was just so I had met with Leah Clark a couple of times in the past about, you know, some other projects, and then she moved to Sunny March, Benedict's company, and they had this original script of Louis Wain, and Benedict was, you know, attached to play the character. And she, after the second series of Flowers, she sent it my way, and, you know, I started looking into it, and I don't know, I just was kind of like, I basically just thought that he couldn't believe that he had led a life as remarkable as the life that he did lead. And I just found him, like, personally very inspiring. And, you know, he lived through a lot of difficult, you know, personal challenges and difficult times, but he seemed to bring delight to other people. And I genuinely liked his work and found him interesting, like his psychology interesting, and wanted to understand him. I'd also just watched Patrick Melrose at the time, like exactly the same time, and was kind of newly excited about Benedict. You know, always thought he was fantastic, but I thought he was like newly brilliant in that show. And so I found myself just pitching on it, and then, you know, pitched my heart out basically to get it, because in a way it didn't really make any sense to hire me to make that movie. so much risk attached. But I think in the end, the reason why I think I got it was because I wasn't like, oh, I've got a sort of objective view on this weird guy and I can turn it into a film. I was like, I feel like I really get this guy. And so I think I probably seemed like I really wanted to make it because I did. And B, in some way, seemed to have like the keys to his heart or his head or whatever it was. And so in spite of all the, you know, other risks attached to hiring someone like me, in the end, it worked out.
Okay, cool.
You can tell though, because it's got such a beautiful, it's got such a unique style to it. We've talked about this before, well, you know, in terms of just, it's such a breath of fresh air, because it feels like you've really, I mean, you've always, from everything that you've directed and written anyway, you've got a style, you've got a great vision, you know, things look really great. They really stand out from everything else. And this film, it really feels like you've almost kind of, for me anyway, it feels like you're really trying to represent his head and his heart in the way that you've chosen to direct this film, and how visually it sort of, you know, kind of looks as well. Is that a fair?
Yeah,
do you think?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, we tried to sort of manifest Wain's world, we called it. You know, we tried to look at Louis Wain's work, and he even published some just like quite strange little books of kind of witticisms, which is like, here's a funny little 2 lines for you, you know, so 40 pages of that, and just try to get his tone and his. But I guess inevitably there's some subjectivity, you know, and I never find anything moving if it doesn't have a sense of humor. I don't trust it or something. And I never find anything funny if I don't believe in the people, and if there isn't some kind of emotional through line, kind of tap out. So there's that kind of personal taste thing. But yeah, there was so much about him that sounded on the surface, like on the surface of it, could just be written off as like quite mad, I guess, you know, like his theories about electricity, but I really felt like kind of know what you mean about how it feels when you're out of sorts and on your way down and anxious. And I also know what you mean about that sort of strange electricity when you're in love or you're creatively excited. And the way he used color, you know, I feel like there are times when it feels to me like somebody has messed with the saturation levels if my mood is a certain way. And even like, I've got 2 cats, even like his theories about like cats will one day just talk to us like human beings. I'm kind of like, yeah, probably. I'm often having conversations with my cats, you know. So yeah.
It's interesting in the film, like how, so I'm guessing that cats weren't very popular at all.
On set?
No, just
back in the day.
Back in the day.
Prior to him. Yeah.
That's
because
right, yeah.
we're doing a show about different eras of time with people called Bandit. And the but part of what our research is that the Pope at one point basically said cats are evil, and from then on, everyone just hated cats. And everyone was like, well, everyone just tried to kill cats because they were evil. And
they've definitely had a bad rap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people did think that, you know, they were demons and they were, you know, obviously associated with witches and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to imagine that. But also going back to style, like I was really struck with just, well, I mean, maybe you'll debunk this, but I've really felt like you were onto everything, like you just had everything like planned, like coming onto that set. The sets were so amazing in that little street down by that little studio. I don't know what the hell the area was called, but I drove out to the middle of nowhere. But like
Ali Pali, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You know it. And so, it was really like the production design was incredible, but also just you knew exactly what you wanted, and sometimes that's like a time thing. You're like, I have to know what I want, but I'm really impressed with that. And I was like, because every time I like see people do that, and they're like, we've had enough of that. We don't need to run the entire thing. Now we need to come over this. I'm like, fuck, why can't I be like that? It's like I really need. I need to plan better.
Thanks, man. I mean, there was definitely. I mean, Susie Davies, the production designer, and her whole team were phenomenal. And I always feel like, I don't know, part of it is answering questions, obviously, and bouncing back on other people's creativity. I felt like there was actually still quite a lot to discover along the way, because the schedule was pretty full on. It was quite fast a lot of the time. But yeah, I guess we did talk about it a lot in prep because of those reasons, because we knew that sometimes you'd have to be in and out of somewhere in a day. And so everything had to be down. And I think we knew that the aesthetic was important with this film because it was about a visual artist. And, you know, so much of how we were trying to get the audience into his head was using, you know, the picture and the frame and the patterns that he, you know, seemed to love and use. So, yeah, but no,
the frame was great as well. The aspect ratio is like, which is, I love that. Because did you use the full sets? Or was that because you were using LF or something and using the full sets?
No, it was basically. It was a few different. Part of it was like.
I know. Aesthetically, it looks amazing. I loved it.
Oh, thanks, man. It's partly because of just fairy tale feeling, nostalgic feeling. One of the things that I liked that Eric Wilson, the DP, also mentioned was like cats are much smaller than people, so because you get like extra height with 4:3, it's quite helpful. But also, I really like in Andrea Arnold's films. For example, I really love 4:3 for close-ups because you like there isn't much of anything else. Yeah, so it's just the faces, and you know, with Benedict and Claire together, sometimes I really appreciated that aspect ratio. But there's loads of 4:3 now.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, but I love it. I'm glad that people are doing more and more of it. It's just funny when you see it on the TV now, because when I was a kid, normal TV, on the 4:3 TV, whenever pictures were in CinemaScope and the top and bottom were cropped out, I was always so annoyed that they weren't using it. And now they're doing it and all the sides are cropped out. So like now kids are like, what is this stupid square?
But like iPads are 4:3.
iPads are basically big.
Banging on about 4:3, sorry.
Yeah.
Taika, would you say that you've got or how would you describe your style of directing? Do you think you have a style?
Hopefully I don't.
You have style, but do you have a style?
Hopefully I don't have too much of a style. I like to think it's different all the time, just because I don't want to repeat myself. But then I look at my stuff, and all of my films are about people with issues with their fathers, and or families, and thematically. But like my style of directing is really like I like to find a lot of stuff on the day, but I'm very finicky. Like I'm very particular about certain things that I want, because I've seen them a certain way. I want them to edit or transition them to a certain thing, and so I'll ask specifically for that stuff. But I will often block things, and it's harder now. Again, earlier I could rehearse as much as I wanted with, when I was with just my friends and with other people who didn't have jobs. Now you want an actor and they're like, yeah, I love rehearsing, and they come in like the day before they shoot and get lag. They don't want to rehearse, so I don't get a chance to do it as much. But I think it's really important. And like I was going to ask you, Will, about that, because like you had such a big cast, and like those sisters are so great. All of them are so amazing, and like just the cacophony of those scenes. I'm like, surely you had to like get that. Did you rehearse with them? Please tell me you did.
Yes, yeah, we did. We did rehearse with they called themselves the Kardashians on set because they got on really well. And yeah, that we did rehearse to try and get a sort of family dynamic, I guess. And because I knew with them there would be some scenes where sort of unscripted moments of kind of moving into a house or eating together. But yeah, they're brilliant as well. I wanted to ask, do you think for you, Taika, is rhythm a big thing? Because I was earlier on when you were talking about, how things are said, I feel like one of the things that I always enjoy in your work is the rhythm of it. Like, I guess particularly in the dialogue. Is that something that you have?
Yeah, it is. And I was like before I made films, like some friends and I used to do a lot of radio plays and just do, just record stuff just for fun a lot of the time. And so a rhythm of conversation and dialogue is really important to me. And even in sometimes in editing, I'll get them because I know that it's interesting. Like, firstly, people treat the picture as the most important thing a lot in editing, and and it kind of ruins the rhythm of scenes because they go, yeah, but this is the only one with the light that matched. I'm like, I don't care about that. That's the lowest priority for me. And sometimes I'll get people to edit without any picture just to get the right, just to listen to it and go, oh, now it sounds good, and then see how the pictures line up. And obviously, a lot of the time the pictures, it's terrible, but it sounds good, and then I try and make it work to that, because I feel like I retain a lot more information when I hear the rhythm of people talking, rather than just, there's a cool shot, and I don't listen to what someone's saying.
And that's the tone.
Interesting.
And the tone of it, in terms of
the tone of it, yeah.
The mix of emotions and the mix of, comedy,
and
drama,
sometimes it'll be really, and sometimes I'm like, do we want the script's just a blueprint, and then as soon as I say that, I'm like, why did I say that? Why did I say that? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. And I only think that there's only a few people I've worked with who are good at improvising, and somehow there's a thing with actors where they're like, they think I'm a very loose director where I'm just like, I don't care about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like probably more than most people. And so like they go, oh, can we do an impro take? And I'm like, sure. and I know, because improvising is really difficult, and it's especially hard. The point of it for me is if it helps the scene and helps you get somewhere.
Yeah.
I improvising when it's just like, say the first thing that comes into your head, or improvise that list of jokes you came up with last night in bed. And which is usually what it is. They're like, oh, I'm going to improvise now. And they just reel off a bunch of dumb lines that they wrote over the last couple of days. And then, and usually it'll be like, you'll be like, action, and like, cool lights. Like, awesome. That was a great ad lib. Thank you for that. It doesn't help me. Maybe we'll just move on now. And so I am particular, and then I'll be so controlling after that I'll be like, say it exactly like this, and then I start line reading for them, and that goes down real well.
Well, where do you stand in improvisation?
I think I agree. Very few people are very good at it, and too often it turns into like a 9-minute take of just non-stop dialogue, none of which is usable.
Or people eating seafood towers.
Yeah. Julian Barrett was very good at it. And I feel like sometimes there are, there's stuff to be gained from it. But I feel like I sometimes on set have to be open about the fact that, look, sometimes I don't care if you change, every other word, or you need to adapt it to fit how you speak. But other times it'll be like, it has to be these 7 words in this order. That's just how I feel like it sounds best. I don't think people will cry if you don't say them in this order, or whatever it is, or they won't laugh. So I guess there's a little bit of inconsistency but I think it's because sometimes it's like, we're just trying to get from A to B. It's kind of unimportant in a way, exactly how you say it. Let's get there. And other times it feels like it's about the words. But yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting that you don't improvise loads on set.
Unless it's you though, Taika, because some of my favorite I mean, me and my kids have watched the outtakes of Korg about a bazillion times.
Oh, right.
So it's like, if it's anyone else, no improvisation, but I'm
anyone
going
else.
to improvise.
As a director, working with the actor me, I mean, I think that the actor me is so brilliant that I'm willing to give him a lot more takes.
That's true. You unscriptedly ate like a whole lobster on us, I think. But I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun.
I loved it. I genuinely loved it.
It was one who I really loved in the film was Andrea Riseborough.
Andrea Riseborough,
yeah.
Far out, man.
Yeah, she was very funny.
You give yourself the luxury of doing a deep dive into Andrea's work, because she's just extraordinary. She can kind of do anything.
Oh, I hate people like that, but I will.
I found it very hard not to laugh. Like, I was sort of putting them off in the scene where she goes to confront Claire Foy's character late at night, and it's kind of like, do you want to swap rooms? And is sort of whispering to her. She's pretending not to be angry, but she's really angry. I was trying, failing not to laugh through that scene.
I then just bursting out, just yelling, just screaming throughout the house. All of the actors have grown up in houses like that, and I just loved it so much. Don't need this. I'm right in this room.
I just wanted to go back to kind of tone really quickly before we wrap up, actually, because
we're talking about aspect ratios.
Sorry. Sorry, was it red or white you wanted with your main course, sir?
Yeah, that's right.
With something like Thor Ragnarok, though, prior to that world, when you came in with that, you absolutely shook it to the core in a good way, in terms of you injected something into that world that I think has then gave it the opportunity to go on as long as it has done, because I just think that it needed something, and you came in with this vision and this tone and this kind of ballsy approach to it that just worked so fantastically. And I was just really interested to find out, coming into something like that, where it's a world that's there, that's existing with characters, but you made it, I hate using that phrase, your own, but you just injected Taika into, you know, this whole Marvel universe, and it worked so brilliantly, and it needed it. Did you just have the balls to kind of go in and go, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want to do?
Well, I mean, literally had nothing to lose, because I'd just come off the back of my fourth film, which I predicted would make me no money again. I felt like they didn't really quite know exactly what they were going to do with it to freshen it up and to make something. Coming into Thor, I could kind of get away with whatever, because they were like, we don't know, just do something different. And I just knew that I was like, because I know Chris, I know he's funny, and you're not tapping into what he is good at, which is being not only good looking and huge, but also charming, and the kind of person that in real life you'd want to go on an adventure with. And so if we made Thor like that, basically just like looked at the movies that I saw when I was growing up, like Big Trouble in Little China, you know, and like anything with Kurt Russell, I was like, I need him to be more like Kurt Russell in this movie, and then I'll trust him and I want to be on the journey with him. And just trying to basically just pour in things as much as possible. And I overloaded that film with just some whack ideas, but also just stuff that's like from, you know, films that I grew up loving, like Flash Gordon, obviously, like, you know, some just like space opera stuff, big pop art stuff, colorful, bombastic films that, you know, that, and a lot of elements that just had no business really being together. Like if you were to pitch that film, it's like, you know, as a space Viking, you know, and you know, and a woman with antlers on her head. There's a giant zombie wolf, a zombie army. There's Jeff Goldblum, and they're in a Jack Kirby world.
And Korg.
You know, and there's a rock man, and the Incredible Hulk. Why not? And you know, so like, it's like, and so like all of those things have no business being together, but somehow they worked. And I overloaded it, and then Marvel were like, I think there's too many things, let's pull them back, but at least there was enough to make it different.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Now the pressure is that I've done that, and now I've got to do another one and make it feel
and Flash
fresh.
Gordon.
Oh, and I'm also going to do Flash Gordon.
And that, yeah.
Forgot about that.
Well, in terms of...
Sorry.
Go on, sorry. No, please.
I was just going to say, the scene that really stuck in my head was when like the Hulk is having like a heart-to-heart about masculinity.
Yeah.
Just still having
there were
moments like that.
Yeah. I mean, there were like, when I went to pitch that, there were things in my, like, that I had in my head all the way through the shoot that I didn't really share with too many people, because a lot of people in Hollywood hadn't even seen this film, but I wanted it to feel like with Nail and I in space. And
amazing.
And I wanted it to be like, because originally it was just going to be like Thor and Hulk going through space on an adventure, and I was like, yeah, these two, I just love the idea of a buddy trip where they're stuck on holiday. They went on holiday by accident, and they're just out there in the middle of space. And so, yeah, it was like that. It was like that, and After Hours with my.
Cool.
Because like Thor is trapped in the ghetto, and like with Jeff Goldblum trying to get home, and like just like, and yeah, it was just, that's how I found like I could make that character a bit more relatable, because he's just, I mean, you know, he's a zillionaire from outer space. He's like super good looking blonde space Viking. I
think when you go to the cinema, you want to have this kind of, for me, it's about this kind of transportative experience. And I remember going to see it at the Odeon Leicester Square, massive cinema with at the time, I think he was like 7 or 8, maybe a bit older. And we were both just absolutely in this world, and it was just so amazing. And well, similarly with Electrical Life of Louis Wain, in terms of what that does, in terms of the transportative nature of that to his world and to his emotions and to his experiences. I think you've just done an incredible job with the whole collaboration of, you know, with your brother, with the music and with their actors. And I think it's just a fantastic film and experience at the cinema as well. So congratulations.
I agree.
Thank you.
I love it. I mean, this, you know, the little part that of my involvement was fun, but being able to see the whole thing together and you know, it's a lot more. For me, I was thrust into it not knowing much about it and not having like experience like reading the whole thing in a, you know, sort of in a little vacuum, and then seeing how emotional the film is, and you know, I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought this was going to be. Like, this is really funny, but like really like it's the kind of perfect film for me, because those are the films I love as well, and that I, you know, that films for me that are perfect are ones that are funny but also can make you cry. The closest to what the human experience is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've run out of time, gents, I'm afraid. It's been lovely. I feel like I've just been eavesdropping on your conversation. I just want to make sure that if people haven't yet had the opportunity to watch The Electrical Life of Louis Wain, it's going to be released in UK cinemas on New Year's Day, a new year, 2022, with previews on the 29th of December. Well, huge congratulations on the film.
Also, it's
yes,
also
Taika?
I've burned some copies that I've got in the back of my. If you're in Sydney and you're out and about, see a grey
Duncan's place.
Yeah, $5 for a DVD on this MacBook.
Listen, thank you so much to you both. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a very happy New Year. And I look forward to seeing what you both give us to enjoy and escape with in 2022. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Taika.
Thanks, Edith. Will,
Thank you.
love you, brother. Love to see you, man.
Thank you so much for doing this.